Happy Spooktober. Welcome back to another episode of Murder, Mysteries, and More. My name's Kaylee.
And my name is Desi.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell next to the subscribe button to turn on post notifications. Before we get into this case, we always encourage those who have useful information for any unsolved case to please report to your local police and sheriff department.
This video is not recommended for people under the age of 18 years old. This video will contain some triggering subjects and will contain graphic details. If you are not comfortable or under 18 years old, please click off now.
Since the 14th century in Europe, the practice of witchcraft, dark magic, emerged. The devil would give women the horrific magic ability to harm others in return for their loyalty. During the spring of 1692, a group of young women in Salem, Massachusetts were accused of being possessed by the devil and witchcraft. A special court was assembled in order for others to witness the cases. We will be unlocking the dark secrets of the Salem Witch Trials.
In early 1692 and mid 1693, the Salem Witch Trials would begin in colonial Massachusetts. Over 200 people were accused of committing the devil's magic. 20 were executed. 1711, authorities forgave some of the accused women and even compensated their families. Not entirely sure how much their families got, but hopefully it was a decent amount. However, not until July 2022, a whopping 329 years later, Elizabeth Johnston Jr., one of the accused women, was finally cleared. At last, all the accused had finally been cleared. The trials were fueled by xenophobia, religious extremism, paranoia, injustice, and the list of reasons goes on. Prior to the Salem Witch Trials, another witchcraft craze had taken place. From the 1300s to the end of the 1600s, a witchcraft craze rippled through Europe. The amount of people who were executed during that craze was tens of thousands, and most were women. When the European witch craze was winding down, the Salem Witch Trials were held.
In 1689, English monarchs William and Mary started a war with France and the American colonies. Conflict devastated the areas such as upstate New York, Nova Scotia, and Quebec. People sought rescue in the county of Essex, mostly in Salem Village in the Massachusetts Bay Colony. It is now known as Salem, Massachusetts. This would strain resources and cause extensive tension between the other villagers. Prior to this, Salem suffered rivalry between families, with more wealth and ties to the port and families that depended solely on agriculture. In 1689, Samuel Parris was the first ordained minister of the village. Most people did not like him because how greedy he was. Puritan villagers thought that all the quarreling was doing the devil's work. In January 1692, Parris's 9-year-old daughter Elizabeth, known as Betty, started having episodes of fits. She screamed, threw things, moved her body in weird positions. One of the doctors labeled it as an act of something supernatural. It was extremely strange and quite frightening to watch.
An 11-year-old girl by the name of Abigail Williams had violent contortions and uncontrollable screaming. William Griggs diagnosed the young girl with bewitchment. Other girls that suffered the same fate were Ann Putnam Jr., Mercy Lewis, Elizabeth Hubbard, Mary Walcott, and Mary Warren. Late February, Paris's Caribbean slave, Tituba, Sarah Good, and Sarah Osborne had arrest warrants issued against them. Now let's talk about Tituba. Tituba was an enslaved woman who was the very first woman to be accused of witchcraft in Salem. Tituba was likely an indigenous Central American who worked under Parris. Parris brought her from Barbados. 1680, she was brought to Massachusetts, and she was only a teenager at the time. It is believed she married another slave whose name was John Indian and had a daughter named Violet. She helped take care of Parris's children, and both his daughter and his niece exhibited strange symptoms in 1692. We also do want to mention that legends and rumors were common around this time, so according to the story, there may be some parts of it that are made up. However, what historians do know comes from her testimony during the Salem Witch Trials.
So back to the story. The little girls decide to play a game. and they would drop an egg white into a glass of water. This supposedly would tell the girls their future. Supposedly, the girls saw a coffin in one of the glasses of water, and they started to freak out and cry. In the Puritan religion, which both girls' families were a part of, it was forbidden to fortune tell. Tituba wanted to help the girls as they seemed upset and they needed help. She baked them a witchcraft cake made from urine and rye mill. When Parris discovered this, he had the girls fast in an attempt to cure them. Parris also beat Tituba to get her to confess that the girls were acting like that was because of witchcraft. She confessed and told him that she was supposed to serve the devil. She said that a black dog told her to hurt the children. This caused hysteria in Salem. She was arrested along with two other women, Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne. Good was looked down upon because of her lack of wealth.
Did none of these people think that maybe they were just schizophrenic? Like, maybe this is mental illness, not
Yeah,
witchcraft.
it kind of sounds more like that.
Yeah. I don't know. Weirdos. Osborne was involved in a dispute with children over their deceased dad's estate. In her testimony, she says she saw two rats, a red rat and a black rat. She told Magrites that they told her to serve them. She told the court that she signed a devil's book. The people of Salem were guilty of accusing people of minority races and Indians with voodoo. The further the trials went out, she remained in prison. Parris refused to pay her bail. 13 months later, Tituba confessed that everything she said was made up and she only went with it because her master kept beating her. By then, the governor of Massachusetts shut down the trials and the arrest stopped. She was let go and was now a free woman. The state of Massachusetts would give the accused back their property and compensation. Historian Vida Smith Tucker mentions that unfortunately, since Tituba was a slave, she received zero compensation. That would be the last record of Tituba. We unfortunately do not know what her life was like after the trials. We do hope that she lived a fulfilling and joyful life afterwards, and Tituba, despite her in real life suffering from low social status, has become popular in lore and literature.
Sarah Good. So John Solar, Sarah's father, drowned by suicide in 1672. His estate was divided between his widow and the children. Her mother was left to control the daughter's estate portions until she was old enough. Once they were old enough, they were supposed to be given their part of the estate. Her mother remarried, and her stepfather was given control of Sarah's inheritance money. This basically meant that she wasn't going to get anything. Sarah's first husband was Daniel Poole. He passed away in 1682. Sarah eventually remarried another man, William. In 1686, her stepfather testified that he gave Sarah and her husband Will the money, which this was complete bullshit. She didn't get anything. Sarah had debts to pay, so in 1686, Will and her sold their property to pay off the remaining debt left by Daniel Poole. The Good family relied on help from charity and were now homeless. Sarah also begged for work. When people declined her work, she would get upset and yell curse words. Unfortunately, this would be used against her in 1692.
I hear Zoe shakies.
Yeah, she's shaking her ear.
Hey, I love the Zoe shakies. As we know, like Tituba, Sarah Good had a warrant issue on February 29th. John Hathorne and John Corwin signed this warrant. She was accused of hurting Elizabeth Parris, Abigail Williams, Ann Putnam Jr., and Elizabeth Hubbard for 2 months straight. George Locker was the constable at the time. One of the girls accused Sarah's ghost of stabbing them with a knife. The girl also showed this knife, supposedly. A man among the spectators claimed it was his knife that he threw away the day before, and it was in sight of the girls. After Tituba's confession, Good claimed that both Tituba and Sarah Osborne were the true witches. However, Sarah Good emphasized her innocence. Good was sent to Spitch jail, where she escaped briefly once. Later on, voluntarily returned, though. One of the girls claimed that when Sarah was in jail, her ghost visited them and assaulted them. March 3rd, Corwin and Hawthorne questioned all three women. William Allen John Hughes, William Good, and Samuel Braybrook testified against Sarah Good, Tituba, and Sarah Osborne. Will stated the mole on his wife's back was a witch's mark.
On March 24th, both Sarah G. and Tituba were sent to Boston jail. Dorcas Good, Sarah's 4-year-old daughter, was arrested, which is freaking crazy. Dorcas was accused of biting Mary Walcott and Ann Putnam, Jr. March 24th, 25th, and 26th, Corwin and Hathorne examined Dorcas. Dorcas claimed that the bite on her hand was caused by a snake bite from a snake that her mother gave her. Historians do know that the bite was more than likely from a flea rather than a snake. March 29th, Sarah confessed that it was Sarah Osborne who hurt the girls. Sarah Good gave birth to Mercy Good in jail. Sadly, due to a severe lack of food and horrible conditions in the jail, the baby did not survive. June 29th, Sarah Good, along with others, Elizabeth Howe, Susanna Martin, and Sarah Wilds, were tried and convicted. The jury found Rebecca Nurse not guilty. However, many people were upset about this and they protested. And due to this, Rebecca, along with the 4 other women, were convicted. July 19, 1692, Sarah Good was hanged at Gallows Hill in Salem along with the 4 other women.
When Sarah Good was urged to confess that she was a witch by Salem's Reverend Nicholas Noyes, she responded, "I am no more than a witch than you are a wizard, and if you take away my life, God will give you blood to drink it." Later that day, he collapsed and died of brain hemorrhaging. Ah ha ha,
Karma got
karma.
him.
Stupid bitch. After the trials in 1710, William Good demanded compensation for his wife's wrongful execution and his daughter's 7 months in jail. Keep in mind, his daughter was roughly 4 to 5 years old, and she was locked up in that bitch. Because what the fuck? They had toddler jail back in them days, I guess.
Yeah,
Because hell no! That's just
that's way
weird.
too.
Mm-mm. She should have been at home playing with Barbies and not in a cold jail cell. His exact words are, "A child of 4 or 5 years old was in prison 7 or 8 months, and being chained in the dungeon was so hardly used and terrified that she hath ever since been very chargeable, having little or no reason to govern herself." The Massachusetts legislature in the 1711 Act mentions Sarah's name. This act was meant to restore rights to all those convicted of witchcraft in 1692. Will would receive one of the largest settlements, and these are just 2 women out of many who suffered immensely. Today I
Oh,
learned during the Salem Witch Trials, none of the people who actually confessed of being a witch were executed. All 19 who were executed of being a witch refused to confess. This name, though. Non-porn Reddit account.
what?
Non-porn Reddit account. The most badass guy was the one who was pressed to death for not confessing. He refused to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty because he didn't want his wife and children to lose all of their property. Giles Corey. Baller. Oh my
Baller.
god. Giles Corey was 81 when they crushed him. He was an old man.
That's crazy.
That's elderly abuse
But
today. Inflamed liver. Makes sense in the U.S. justice system. Plead guilty for a light sentence or fight the charges for a maximum penalty. That is very true, though. That is how our justice system works. You either take a plea or you get maximum penalty.
yeah,
Sometimes you get off and you don't get to serve any jail time.
nope.
In a puritanical American colony, you might as well be dead.
Might as well.
Yeah, might as well just kill yourself. Be better off, probably.
Beagle Scout. I'm not a witch, I'm your wife, and after what you said, I'm not sure I want to be that anymore. Damn.
Divorce! Divorce! Not sure. 9191. It's because they were made of wood. When did we go into wood people?
Who knows?
Yeah. I like this one. 0% vigorous. So the next time someone asks you if you're a witch, you say yes. You can now because they won't execute you.
True.
Yeah. I can just say, yeah, I put a spell on you. Literally.
Or yeah, a lot of religions are pretty fucked up.
DJ breadwinner, it was kind of a big dill. As in dill pickle.
They'll pick.
It was kind of a big deal.
That's fun.
Oh no. Praise the wings 247. So logically, if she weighs the same as a duck, she's made of wood, and therefore she's a witch. It makes no sense.
Rest in power, Sarah Good. And then there is a Instagram post, and it says Sarah Good was executed on July 29th, 1692. She was one of the first 3 women to be accused of witchcraft. She has lower economic status, and her dependency on neighbors and others perpetuated suspicions of Good and other dependent women like Good that they were practicing witchcraft. Tree with a bunch of underscores. The most interesting part of the Salem Witch Trials is that the people killed were the ones who didn't admit to witchcraft, therefore preventing deaths. But my first grade teacher said Rebecca Nurse wasn't a hero. Sally slings the booze. Is it just me, or does anyone else feel weird about the words of someone who didn't like this person and made up a mean story about them being used to define them after their execution? Yeah, that's pretty fucked up.
Ah, here we go. Eli underscore 14 underscore Eli. Salem witch trials happened because people were Christian.
Him 379. The first people to start accusations were an 11 and 9-year-old. Yeah, it's interesting how that dictated this whole thing.
This comment though, Zach Master 78. Well, you're right. I mean, isn't seeing kids as small adults the very reason so many people thought it was normal to date and have sex with minors?
Ew.
That he's got a point though.
Yeah.
This is why. Nowadays it's shunned, but back then, Jesus.
Salem Witch Trials. Hello,
Oh.
Salem historian here. The Salem Witch Trials were the result of religious
Bless you.
fanaticism and theocracy. The little girls were used as weapons and shields by their father and the men in town. Blaming the girls for the Salem Witch Trials would be blaming the little girls that grew up in Al-Qaeda for things that happened in their society. These children grew up in repressed and radicalized society that treated them like property. Yeah.
One on the last post says, "My dumbass thought it was a quote from Sabrina's cat until I read the caption."
Oh, that's funny.
Rest in power, Sarah Good. Oh no, that I could see that. I could see Salem saying that.
I
Yeah,
could see that.
yeah. That's why his name is Salem. Salem Witch Trials. Which Tituba spent her childhood and life being held in captive in slavery, although in real life society constantly put her down due to the way she looked and accused her of being a witch. She held an important role in literature. She did not deserve to go through what she did. Sarah Good as well suffered from both her father's death and husband's death. She was screwed out of money and wrongfully hung. Both of these women should have never been accused of being witches. Thank you for listening. Remember to always keep your eyes open because you never know when someone's creeping. And tune in next time for part 2.